Rich people have ready to married someone significantly poorer. What surprised you about their previous way of life? When the family had people over for dinner, if they ended the prayer before the meal with F, H, B, Amen, it was a signal to let the children know that they don't have enough food for everyone. So take smaller servings and let the guests get a regular serving. FHB equals family. Hold back. They were always generous to their friends and didn't let their lack of funds embarrass themselves when doing so. I grew up poor too, but we never had any guests round for dinner. FHB. My heart was just thinking the same thing. My family was considered antisocial. It wasn't because we didn't like socializing or going to events, it's because we couldn't afford to. And if mum and dad organized dinners they planned months beforehand, scraped every cent together to pay for it. My ex was stunned when I told her I've only ever had one birthday party, 21st, because mum and dad had no money. This thread is making me really sad. I'm going to make you all dinner. Honestly, food insecurity. When we were first married she would get visibly uneasy if the food in the house was running low. She never overate or anything. She was just always concerned about it. A lot of times when she was younger, she went hungry. On the humorous side though, she hates camping. Her answer is always the same. I camped because it was fun. She camped because they couldn't afford hotels. For me, my love of camping started from growing up poor. The only family vacations my single mom and brother and I had were family reunion events several states away. It involved long road trips in a shitty car with no account, but we got to camp in tents and get a break from reality. We also ate a lot better over a campfire than me making hamburger helper for my brother while my mom went to bed early. She worked hard to support us and battled with depression untreated for years until she could afford medication. Those trips were good for all of us. I remember living 6 kids. My oldest brother had left already and 2 parents in an old single wide trailer, and that was the happiest time of my life. One of the saddest was when my dad later bought a TV. Before that we all talked. She and her mother lived with her grandfather to not be homeless because her grandfather owned a house. She was putting community college payments on her credit card and building debt with it. I paid off her credit cards when we were dating and she cried from me being so nice. It was only like $300. I bought a condo. Then we got married. Then we bought a house. I never really considered myself rich until I started dating her and learned that a trip to Wendy's was a treat. I grew up middle class and we are currently middle class. A trip to Wendy's was a treat. You've basically just summarized my entire struggle with finances and food. I grew up working class. Dad's a welder. Mom stayed at home with us, and eating out, even just at McDonald's, was a huge treat. But now that I'm on my own and making money, I can have that treat every day if I want. My fiancé recently pointed this out to me, and I'm working on it. But that habit is so damn hard to break. Edit. OMG, my first gold. Thank you, kind stranger. Also, to address a common question about welders making a lot of money, I've copy/pasted my response to an earlier comment. Depends on where you're at. I think my dad was making around $20/HR working full time. But he also was paying more than half of his monthly income to his ex-wife for child support, to older half-brothers, and alimony. So he may have been making good money. We just didn't see most of it. Additionally, we were in a tiny town in Texas in the 90s, and dad wasn't very interested in moving up the ladder, and or the company he was with wasn't eager to have him move up. Things got much easier in the past couple years when he switched companies and moved up to general foreman in construction right before retiring. I think I'm pretty well off, but damn, with the 2 kids. The wife. McDonald's costs around $30 now, hahaha. You don't even need the kids. My wife always finds a way to somehow find the most expensive assortment of food at any restaurant. How the hell is our tab from the Chinese place $32? My share was only $6.99. Oh, right. Apostrophe. This. I've never understood this. I grew up poor, and so did my wife, and she will spend so much money on food. We'll bring the leftovers home, and she won't touch it ever again. I've actually started ordering less because of this. I'll get a small meal while she has a huge one, and I'll just eat what she doesn't finish, which is usually half. The prevailing mindset in his community growing up that insurance was something only rich people had, not health insurance. Mind you, well, not just health insurance, auto insurance. Going without it was a way of life for most everyone he knew. My so has to constantly remind me that I can go to the doctor whenever I need to instead of just hoping I don't die. I still play Google MD to see if the horrific cost is worth going or if death is imminent. Heart attack or pulled muscle / pinched nerve? Still hurts 2 months later, but I'm not dead yet. So hopefully it will clear up without permanent damage. I'm not well off, but my stepfather is. I was raised by a single mom who spent money on everything, and bills were always behind. She just couldn't manage her money at all. In her 50s she met and married a multi-millionaire. We are in middle America, so that goes further than maybe in a lot of areas. They have given themselves $10,000 a month budget to live on, living on interest, own their home. Anyway, once my mom met him and they got all her finance situated and paid off, she won't spend a penny. He spends like it is going out of style. He has actually begged me to take her shopping to get clothes and accessories. She won't do it. She spent more when she was a single mom with nothing. It makes no sense to me. At least buy a new outfit. She is hell-bent to not use a penny of his money. They barely even have any groceries. If they have anything, it is because he buys it for them. She is a retired nurse that gets a retirement and SS, but she won't spend anything. She lives poorer now than any other time in her life. This sounds less like a financial issue and more like she's trying to preserve her pride. She knows that people will think she's a gold digger if she spends his money, so she's going to the opposite extreme and refusing to benefit from any of it. Edit. Maybe anxiety is a better way to describe it than pride. Absolutely. Sounds like she doesn't want to come off as a gold digger who spends her husband's money. But also, she may have realized that she doesn't really need to spend much anymore if basics are covered, and she doesn't have young kids anymore. My mom spends very little money, as does my dad. They have money, but they've always been frugal. I realize that the biggest expense has always been us kids. Piano lessons for us, trips for us to see grandparents, dinner if it's our birthdays, toys every so often. Now they don't have to spend on that stuff. They occasionally eat out. They travel a bit, but usually that's paid for by my dad's company, so they just don't spend much. They don't enjoy spending in and of itself. They just spent money in the past to take care of family. Yeah, that sounds like my parents. Day to day, they spend jack shit. Seriously, the thought of spending $3 to rent a movie when they could watch something on Netflix for no additional cost is a complete anathema to them. That said, they are willing to spend much more on vacation, though they still don't like renting $3 movies while staying in a fancy ski resort condo. I didn't marry this woman, but when we started dating, she always wanted to chill at my place, never hers, which was fine. But she gained 35 pounds in just like a few months of dating. She was 100 pounds when we started dating. Not that it was a bad thing. 1. I'm a chubby man, and 2. I was just glad she wasn't pregnant. Anyway, turns out her family couldn't afford dinner sometimes. So suddenly she had a place to eat every night and gorged herself. I know 2 siblings who were starved by their father for years until CPS took them away and placed them with their biological mother. From there, they gained at least 100 pounds respectively and will not stop gorging themselves on food. At first, I didn't understand, but now that I'm older, I know. Food scarcity is traumatizing. That was me when I went to live with my aunt. I put on like 80 pounds in high school because I suddenly had 3 full meals a day and snack and dessert, and no self-control. It's been a battle since. Hard to develop self-control when you have years of the programmed response: eat while it's available. It won't be there long. Also, eating fast so older or stronger people don't take your food. I still find it a struggle to eat slowly with people. I have to remind myself they won't steal food from me. I'm from an upper middle class American family and my husband is from a poor Asian family. It is hard for me to wrap my head around how poor they really were when he was growing up. He told me about eating only rice with sugar for meals because they couldn't afford meat. They were probably living off less than $0.50/day for a family of 5 at times. I'm Southeast Asian as well. Rice, soy sauce, eggs and a little vegetables go a long way. I know this is not the point you were making, but reading those ingredients just made my mouth water for fried rice. Cheap ingredients doesn't mean bad food, it just means a lot of the same food. It means a lot of carbs in some cases, because they are so cheap. My so said today I made rent, meaning today I've earned enough/accumulated enough to pay the rent, and I realized that this is a monthly accomplishment to someone with no fixed income/salary. Making rent is a huge relief. The other horrible part of having unpredictable income is that when you try to get your financial shit together, all the budgeting advice assumes that you get the same amount each week, or at least close enough to work off an average. It made me feel really hopeless when I was there. Oh my god, thank you for saying that. This has always bothered the hell out of me. One of my exes could pull in a lot of money, easily twice or thrice what I could. He was so incredibly bad at saving this money, down to, say, setting himself up as a company to avoid paying higher rate of tax, but then paying a large amount each month to an accounting company to handle his taxes, which he'd do himself anyway because he didn't trust them to get it right. He'd pay for taxes from one end of the city to another or hire cars rather than use public transport. Flights cancelled, book new ones, never bother to claim back on insurance, buy a sports car, wreck it, sell it for scrap. He'd work contracts and then take time off to work on his own startup, but spend every weekend just going out and buying drugs and booze. I thought it was really fun and wild at first, haha. Money really means nothing to you, but when we became a long-term couple I started feeling like his mother. Man, will you not just fill out the insurance paperwork? My husband grew up in a family where they were comfortable, but on a strict budget. 6 kids and mom on disability. My family had no budget. One day we were at the grocery store and he always insists on walking up and down every aisle. I finally lost it because he was taking so long and asked him why he did it. Growing up we could only spend $100 a week on groceries for all of us. I always had to put what I wanted back because we couldn't afford it. Now I can afford whatever I want, so I like to look at everything I could have. Took him 10 years to tell me this. I felt like a terrible person. My dad is a successful business owner now with several houses and multiple sources of income. But he grew up dirt poor when he had parents, and became even poorer when he was out on his own at 14. Think sleeping on the floor of a gas station men's room. To this day he will take a small handful of cereal out of his bowl before he pours milk in and put it back in the box. So he'll always have some cereal for later. Over 40 years later, and the pain and worry of growing up poor without luxuries like breakfast cereal still affect him. Growing up without money does shitty things to people.